Good evening, everybody. I hope you are having a wonderful day today. It's what Tuesday? No, today is Wednesday. We're in the middle of the week already. So I'm just here, it's Black History Month, all of February. But I really truthfully want to say that I don't really say I'm an avid celebrator of Black History Month. The reason being is that Black History Month falls within the coldest month of the year. Um, Number one. Number two, Black History Month, especially in the Northern Hemisphere up here in Canada, it's very hard to engage in any celebrations or festivals, parades, marches, because of the weather. It's freezing cold. People mostly want to stay inside. So, therefore, I would say that whilst a majority of us are like, oh, we have Black History Month, you have to realize that getting our history, and I don't mean the pretty history, I mean the real reality of the struggle of Black people throughout the 8 pages of history. It's hard to do that in the cold. So celebrating our history and what have you in February, really sharing it out there and adding, like events and what have you is not attainable in February. And that's just my thought. The second part of what I want to say today, it has a lot to do with image. For many Black people, we look at the image, we look at how the person looks, the shoes they're wearing, their brand of clothing that they're wearing. Image has a lot to do with how we judge things or value things, and that's pretty very sad. And image doesn't only include what you're wearing, what you look like, your clothing brands that you wear. Image also has a lot to do with your socioeconomic status, the car you drive, where you live, where you work. Those are all under the umbrella of image. And like all how it's Black History Month, we're going to hear about the commercial heroes. I call them commercial because there's a lot of Black individuals that have been completely erased from Black history. Now, every February, we know we're going to hear about Rosa Parks because she's the sister that didn't get up that day on the bus. But I want to tell you about Claudette Colvin. Now, she is the real sister who refused to get up that day on the bus. Why most of us are like, who is she? We don't know, because Claudette Colvin did not fit the ideal image of someone to represent justice, someone to represent advocacy, because at the time where she resisted, she was a teenage pregnant woman. So, with that being said, I'm going to press play and let you see and hear a little bit about Claudette Colvin, the real Rosa Parks that was erased from Black history, all because of image. Here we go. Just give me 1 second. Here we go. And pressing the play button. All right, it's coming.
March 2nd, 1955, Montgomery, Alabama. 9 months before the name Rosa Parks would change the world, a 15-year-old girl named Claudette Colvin was sitting on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama.
I said she was 17. I apologize. She was 15. Here we go.
The driver stood up, looked her in the eye, and said, "Give up your seat." Most of you were taught that the civil rights movement started with a tired seamstress. But that's not the whole truth. Today, we're going to talk about the girl who did it first and the reason why the history books, and even the leaders of the movement itself, decided to delete her from the story. Hey folks, in case we haven't met, I'm the digital avatar of Professor Darius. While he's busy in the classroom, I've stepped in to bring the material to you. So, let's jump in. Let's set the scene. It's a Tuesday. Claudette is a student at Booker T. Washington High School. She's just learned about the Constitution. She's learned about her rights as an American citizen. Her head is full of Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth. She boards the Highland Gardens bus, pays her fare, and sits down in the colored section. But the bus starts filling up. Back then, Jim Crow wasn't just a set of laws. It was a psychological cage. If the white section filled up, black passengers were expected, legally required, to stand so a white person could sit. The driver, Robert W. Clear, sees a white woman standing. He looks back at Claudette and 3 other black students. He tells them to get up. 3 of them do. Claudette doesn't move. Think about the primal fear here. You're 15. You're surrounded by people who view you as less than human. The police are on their way. In 1955 Alabama, being a disrespectful black person didn't just get you arrested, it could get you killed. But Claudette told the driver, "It's my constitutional right to sit here as much as that lady. I paid my fare." The police arrived. They didn't just ask her to leave. They dragged her. They kicked her. They called her names we can't repeat on this platform. As they handcuffed her, she didn't cry. She screamed, "It's my constitutional right," over and over again. She was taken to an adult jail. She was terrified. She sat in that cell, praying, listening to the sound of the keys jingling. She was the spark. The fuse was lit. But here is where the story takes a dark political turn. After the arrest, the black community in Montgomery was electrified. This was it. They had the case. E.D. Nixon, the head of the NAACP, looked at Claudette's case and saw the potential to change everything. But then, the marketing department of the civil rights movement stepped in. To win in the 1950s, you didn't just need to be right, you needed to be marketable. You needed to appeal to the broad sensibilities of white liberals in the North and the Supreme Court justices in D.C.
Basically, it's all about the image. Here goes.
They looked at Claudette. She was a teenager. She was described as feisty and emotional. She was from a lower income background. And most importantly to the colorist standards of the time, she was dark-skinned. Then the unthinkable happened. A few months after her arrest, Claudette became pregnant by a married man. In 1955, this was a death sentence for a social movement's optics. The leaders, including a young Martin Luther King Jr., had a meeting. They decided that Claudette Colvin could not be the face of the boycott. They needed someone who was beyond reproach. Someone middle class. Someone calm. Someone with good hair. They needed Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks was 42. She was a secretary for the NAACP. She was deeply respected. She was, in their words, easy to look at. When she refused to move 9 months later, it wasn't an accident. It was a perfectly executed piece of strategic engineering. But here's the thing history hides. Rosa Parks knew Claudette. She had mentored her. She had even let Claudette stay at her house. The movement used Claudette's bravery as a test run, and then they moved on to the polished version.
There you go. So even back then, during a time where we looked at the NAACP as freedom fighters and advocates for the Black community, to them, image mattered over justice, because Claudette Colvin didn't fit that description of the ideal Black woman. Her skin was darker than Rosa, her hair was different than Rosa, and she became pregnant at 15. So you see how even Black people are complicit as well, um, in erasing relevant history. So it all of that we've been fed these lies and believing these lies, and to us, before we think about justice and before we think about achieving anything that will build, unite, and empower the Black community, we think about lighter skin, better hair quality, your socioeconomical status, and what else? Your marital status. Even back then during the Jim Crow era. You see, we're supposed to learn from history, not repeat it over and over again to a point of exhausting redundancy. And we still do that to that day. A lot of Black people are ignored, silenced, minimized because they may not fit the image. They may be too big, or they're a Rasta, they're dark, they're single, or all the minute details of a person's image that matters so much that we as a people, rather than focus on the goal of what the person or people are trying to do, we have more focus on the image and how it looks. You rate the image of the messenger rather than listen to the message. We're supposed to learn from history and not keep the same patterns going and going and going. So now you heard there's irrefutable proof. Rosa Parks is not the female who said, no, I'm not getting up. It's my constitutional right. Because of image, the NAACP decided to portray Rosa Parks as the face of that day in the bus in Montgomery, Alabama. Yeah. So since they say it's our month for history, let's talk about history, the real history, including history that has been erased, and our complicity, because we think about image before we think about our rights and our freedom and protecting our community. Have a good evening. You don't know it's Vanessa San Louis, the CEO of Black People United for some well-deserved and needed change. See ya.